The chilling winds of the Cold War era swept across the globe, casting long shadows of fear and suspicion. In the early 1960s, the United States found itself locked in a tense ideological struggle, a battle for influence that often teetered on the brink of outright conflict. Nowhere was this tension more palpable than in the Caribbean, where the specter of communism had taken root just 90 miles from American shores. Following Fidel Castro's revolution, U.S.-Cuba relations plummeted into a rapid decline, transforming a once friendly neighbor into a perceived existential threat. The fear of Soviet expansion of nuclear war became a constant, gnawing anxiety in the American psyche. At the heart of this geopolitical maelstrom stood President John F. Kennedy, a leader grappling with immense pressure, and General Lyman Lemnitzer, the formidable chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Alongside the other Joint Chiefs of Staff, Lemnitzer represented the pinnacle of U.S. military leadership, men forged in the fires of global warfare, now consumed by the imperative to protect the nation from what they saw as an encroaching, insidious enemy. The narrative surrounding Cuba quickly solidified into one of imminent danger. Media outlets and political rhetoric painted Fidel Castro as an aggressive, unpredictable tyrant, a puppet of Moscow whose every move threatened American security. The public was fed a steady diet of fear, with images of Soviet missiles and Cuban revolutionary fervor dominating headlines. This perception was tragically reinforced by the disastrous Bay of Pigs invasion, a failed CIA-backed attempt to overthrow Castro in 1961. The humiliating defeat left a bitter taste in the mouths of the Joint Chiefs, particularly General Lemnitzer, who viewed it as a catastrophic misstep by civilian leadership, a squandered opportunity to decisively neutralize the Cuban threat. Frustration simmered within the Pentagon. The Joint Chiefs, convinced that a direct military intervention was the only viable path, grew increasingly agitated by what they perceived as Kennedy's cautious approach. They yearned for a definitive solution, a way to justify a full-scale invasion of Cuba that would finally crush Castro's regime. It was from this cauldron of military impatience and strategic urgency that the seeds of Operation Northwoods were sown. The initial concept was audacious, almost unthinkable: to create a pretext for war, to manufacture a series of incidents that would shock the American public and provide an irrefutable casus belli for military action against Cuba. General Lemnitzer, a man of unwavering conviction and strategic prowess, took the lead in developing these radical proposals, pushing the boundaries of what was considered acceptable in the pursuit of national security. The audacity of the plan, as it began to take shape, was truly staggering. The proposals outlined a series of false flag operations, meticulously designed to appear as unprovoked acts of Cuban aggression. These included staging simulated terror attacks on U.S. soil, specifically targeting civilian areas in Miami and other Florida cities. The plan even detailed the potential sinking of a U.S. naval vessel, an act of self-inflicted destruction intended to evoke memories of the USS Maine and galvanize public support for war. Imagine innocent American citizens caught in the crossfire of a manufactured conflict, their lives sacrificed for a political agenda. The sheer scale of the deception, the willingness to inflict harm upon one's own people, revealed a chilling desperation within certain military circles. As these plans were meticulously drafted, internal discussions within the military surely grappled with the profound moral dilemma at hand. The pressure to act decisively against Castro was immense, yet the ethical concerns of deliberately harming American citizens, of betraying the trust of the nation, must have weighed heavily on some. The initial draft of the memorandum detailing Operation Northwoods, a document that would later send shivers down the spines of those who read it, began its journey up the chain of command, a testament to the military's determination to present a solution, no matter how extreme. The document eventually landed on the desk of Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. A man of formidable intellect and analytical rigor, McNamara found himself face to face with a proposal that challenged the very foundations of ethical warfare and democratic governance. The fate of Operation Northwoods, and indeed the moral compass of a nation, hung precariously in the balance. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara stared at the Northwoods memorandum, its pages detailing a chilling blueprint for staged terror. Each proposal, from fabricated attacks in Miami to the simulated sinking of a U.S. naval vessel, was laid out with cold, clinical precision. His initial reaction was a visceral jolt of disbelief, swiftly followed by a profound sense of alarm. The sheer audacity of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, particularly General Lemnitzer, in proposing such a morally bankrupt scheme, gnawed at him. McNamara, a man renowned for his analytical mind, grappled with the extreme nature of these proposals, understanding immediately the catastrophic consequences they could unleash. This wasn't merely a tactical maneuver. It was a betrayal of the American people, a willingness to sacrifice innocent lives for a political agenda. The ethical lines were not just blurred, they were obliterated. President Kennedy, meanwhile, harbored a deep-seated skepticism towards military adventurism, a stance hardened by recent bruising experiences. The Bay of Pigs fiasco had been a stark lesson in the perils of unchecked military enthusiasm and flawed intelligence. Even more recently, the Cuban Missile Crisis had brought the world to the precipice of nuclear annihilation, a terrifying ordeal that had underscored Kennedy's conviction that restraint, careful diplomacy, and a clear-eyed assessment of risks were paramount. He had seen firsthand the aggressive approach favored by some within the military, an approach he increasingly viewed as reckless and dangerous. The clash between this hawkish military mindset and Kennedy's desire for measured restraint was a growing chasm. The inevitable confrontation occurred in the hallowed halls of the White House. McNamara, his face etched with concern, presented the Northwoods memorandum to President Kennedy. The room, usually a hub of strategic discussion, was thick with unspoken tension. As Kennedy absorbed the horrifying details, his expression hardened, a mixture of incredulity and righteous anger. He listened to the arguments, likely presented by Lemnitzer himself or his representatives, with thinly veiled impatience. Then, his rejection was direct and unequivocal. He would not countenance such a plan. He would not allow the American government to become an architect of terror against its own citizens. The palpable disagreement between civilian and military leadership was undeniable, a stark reminder of who ultimately held the reins of power. Kennedy's decision was not just a rejection of a plan, but a powerful assertion of civilian control over the military, a necessary check against potentially catastrophic overreach. For General Lemnitzer and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Kennedy's swift and firm rejection was a bitter pill to swallow. Disappointment and profound frustration settled over them. They felt undermined, their strategic vision dismissed by political leadership, they perceived as overly cautious and unwilling to take decisive action against what they considered an undeniable threat. The internal fallout within the Pentagon was significant. The incident exposed deep fissures between the military's desire for aggressive intervention and the White House's commitment to more diplomatic and restrained approaches. The dynamics shifted, with a clear message sent from the Oval Office. Such extreme measures would not be tolerated. The immediate aftermath saw the Northwoods document swiftly classified and buried deep within government archives. A deliberate, concerted effort was made to prevent any public knowledge of the plan's existence. The chilling implication of what could have been of a nation willingly inflicting harm upon itself was too sensitive, too dangerous to ever see the light of day. It was a secret deemed too explosive, too damaging to the public trust. Yet, even in its suppression, whispers of dissent and veiled references to extreme plans circulated in the hushed corridors of intelligence circles. Those who knew carried a lingering sense of unease, a silent acknowledgement of how close the nation had come to a horrifying precipice. Though the document was hidden, locked away from public scrutiny, the truth always possesses an uncanny ability to resurface, threatening to expose even the darkest chapters of history. Decades slowly unfurled, stretching into a new millennium, as Operation Northwoods remained a closely guarded secret, a specter lurking in the forgotten corners of history. The Cold War continued its tense dance, its anxieties and rivalries evolving, yet the specific, horrifying context of Northwoods faded from immediate memory for all but a select few. Key figures involved, like General Lemnitzer and President Kennedy, passed from the stage of global affairs, their roles in that dark chapter becoming enshrined in history books, though the full truth of their confrontation over Northwoods remained obscured. The world moved on, blissfully unaware of the precipice from which it had narrowly recoiled. Then, the inevitable began. The wheels of declassification, slow and methodical, turned, grinding away at layers of secrecy. Historians and diligent researchers, driven by an insatiable quest for truth, began sifting through countless documents released under the Freedom of Information Act. It was within this vast ocean of historical records that the Northwoods document resurfaced, no longer a whisper, but a chilling scream from the past. Its revelation sent shockwaves through the historical community and subsequently the public. The cold, precise language of the memorandum, detailing false flag operations against American citizens, was laid bare for all to see. Disbelief quickly morphed into outrage as the sheer audacity of the plan became undeniably clear. Media outlets seized upon the story, headlines screaming about the government's secret plot to deceive its own people. Public reaction was swift and fierce. Debates erupted across the nation, questioning the very foundations of government transparency and military ethics. How could such a plan have been conceived? What safeguards were in place to prevent its recurrence? The revelation undeniably eroded trust in institutions, forcing a painful reckoning with the darker impulses that can emerge during times of national crisis. Citizens grappled with the terrifying notion that their own government had once considered sacrificing them for a political agenda. Analysts and commentators meticulously dissected the Northwoods plan, examining how terrifyingly close the United States had come to initiating a self-inflicted war. The incident became a powerful, albeit disturbing, case study in the enduring relevance of false flag operations in geopolitical discourse, a stark reminder that the manipulation of public opinion through manufactured crises is not merely a theoretical concept, but a chilling historical reality. Discussions intensified around the critical importance of checks and balances within government, particularly the civilian oversight of military power, a principle fiercely upheld by President Kennedy in that fateful confrontation. The enduring impact of Operation Northwoods transcended its immediate historical context, solidifying its place as a cautionary tale for future generations. It profoundly influenced subsequent discussions about war powers, the justifications for military intervention, and the ethical boundaries of national security strategies. The shadow of Northwoods loomed over debates, serving as a stark reminder of the potential for extreme measures when fear and desperation outweigh moral considerations. Its existence forced a deeper introspection into the delicate balance between national interest and fundamental human rights. Ultimately, the redemption of this dark chapter arrived through transparency. The declassification and public revelation of the Northwoods document, though delayed, served as a crucial act of historical accountability. It underscored the vital role of unearthing uncomfortable truths in preventing future abuses of power. While the plan itself was undeniably chilling, its ultimate rejection by President Kennedy and its later exposure became a testament to the resilience of democratic checks and balances, and the enduring power of truth to emerge, illuminating even the darkest corners of history, ensuring that such a betrayal would never be forgotten.